All right, and we are live.
Thank you and good evening. Welcome to the March 8th, 2022 work session of the Zoning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. My name is Kiba Samuel and I serve as chair of the Planning Committee. And this meeting is being streamed online in accordance with the electronic meeting statute. Requirements for notice and access have been met electronically. We ask that everyone keep their microphones muted when you are not speaking. For commissioners, please state your name before making a motion or second. We will begin with introductions, beginning with Mr. Vice Chair, please.
Good evening, everybody. This is Douglas Welton. I'm the Vice Chair of the Zoning Committee, and I serve on the Planning Commission. Hope you're having a fun evening this evening, and this is going to be a party.
Commissioner Blumenthal.
Andrew Blumenthal, Zoning Committee.
Commissioner Chirinos.
Good afternoon, Astrid Chirinos, Zoning Committee, Planning Commission.
Commissioner Rhodes, do we have audio? I think we're still having trouble with audio, Commissioner Rhodes. I'll circle back in just a second. Commissioner Spencer.
I'm here, Sam Spencer, Zoning Committee.
Thank you. Courtney, you want to try again? No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioner Courtney Rose, Zoning Committee.
Thank you so very much. Now we'll go through the rest of the introductions. Let's see, Holly.
Holly Kramer, rezoning staff.
Alfred.
Alfred Oyoyo, CDOT.
Brandon.
Good evening, Brandon Brazil, Development Services, Deputy Division Manager, CDOT.
Jake.
Hello, Jay Carpenter, Development Services, Land Development Section Manager. Thank you.
Joe.
Joe Mangum, Planning Staff.
John.
John Kinley, Planning Staff.
Kevin.
Good afternoon, Kevin Parker, CDOT Project Manager.
Michael.
Good evening, Michael Russell, Planning Staff.
Patrick.
Good evening, Patrick Monroe, CDOT staff.
Walter.
Good evening, Walter Blackman, CDOT staff.
Donna.
Donna Johnson McNeil, Planning Staff.
And last but certainly not least, Dave.
Dave Pettin, Rezoning Manager.
Did I catch everyone? Did I omit anyone? Going once, going twice, hearing none. Mr. Patton, can you please advise on any withdrawals or deferrals?
Yeah, certainly. As listed in the agenda, we've got items 1 through 5. Item number 1 has been withdrawn. We'll formalize that withdrawal with City Council at the zoning meeting on the 21st, but just as an update, since that was supposed to be back on our agenda, that petition's been withdrawn. Items 2, 3, 4, and 5 are listed as deferral. We also had item number 6 requested a deferral, I believe, earlier today. So that would be items 2 through 6, requesting a deferral till April 5th of 2022. So we'd need a motion on those.
I'll make a motion to, this is Commissioner Welton, I'll make a motion to accept those deferrals.
Blumenthal, second.
And that was for the deferral and withdrawal. Heard motion by Welton, second by Blumenthal. Commissioner Chirinos.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Welton.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
And I see we have Commissioner Ham that has joined us.
Aye.
Thank you. The chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Then that takes to item number 7. That's going to be 2021093 by Still Creek LLC. And we'll hear from Joe.
Thank you. This is approximately 185 acres just south of 45, east of Steel Creek Road, north of Brown Greer Road, and west of Sandy Porter Road, just between the Charlotte Premium Outlets and Olympic High School. The current zoning is R3 for the majority of the site. The northwest corner is MUD CD and also I1 CD. The proposed zoning is O2 CD, MUD O, and UR2 CD with 5-year vested rights. The Steel Creek area plan recommends residential at up to 6 dwelling units per acre. The site, however, there was a Steel Creek development response study in 2017 that recommended the area be developed with a mixed use, moderate to high intensity development with the appropriate street network to support such development. Also emphasize that the development should be walkable and pedestrian oriented. The proposal is for 1.23 million square feet of office and or medical office uses, 340,000 square feet of community hospital uses, 104,200 square feet of commercial uses, 250 hotel rooms, 275 multifamily dwelling units and or senior multifamily dwelling units, 50 single family attached dwelling units. There's some allowance for conversions and transfers of those uses. They are granting the 35-foot swim buffer, which runs kind of bisects north-south through the site in the middle of the plan for future greenway, and also dedicating the E2 development area, bottom right of hand of your screen, for future park. They're committing to a range of transportation improvements as a result of TIS, as well as committing to several preferred architectural standards. Since the public hearing, they have cleaned up some transportation notes, as well as working with CDOT to preserve a corridor for future Gable Road connection, a bridge across 45. Staff recommends approval and be happy to answer any questions.
Joe, can you repeat the note about the bridge?
I'm going to let CDOT take that one. That was kind of a late development.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So, yeah, there's a connection that we got implemented into the plan towards the end of, I guess, right around the time of the public hearing, to have a connection that would connect from this development across 485 over to Gable Road. If you want to go back to that site plan, you could probably see that pretty clearly. I think Gable Road was there. You could see where Gable Road is on the north side of that plan. So it would connect that kind of loop road on the north side of the plan up to Gable Road. And at this time, we've got the developer committed to set aside area for that future connection and not to preclude that whenever the city identified bond dollars or some other way to fund getting that connection across 485.
Thank you, Brandon. Any other questions, any comments, discussion?
Excuse me, this is Commissioner Chirinos. Is this in alignment with what the county requires in terms of the proportion of the green areas that they have allocated? Because we know that there is a huge need for that. That little area that you said, E1, no, E2, that's all there's going to be a green area of a greenway, let's see. It just seems like 184 acres. I remember that we had another one that was less acreage, and the county requested for more space. So I just want to make sure that we have cover those bases with the county.
Yes, Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation is part of the review process, and I believe they did initially request more acreage of open space or future parkland, but they have no outstanding comments. And further in the development process, I believe each one of these development areas would have to have their own open space, not necessarily in public ownership, but that's a part of the review process for each development. But there's some open space preserved.
Okay, so, but the county has not made any more comments about the amount of space that has been allocated right now. So they're okay with that? It just seems like it's not enough. But
Yeah, I don't dismiss your comment at all. I think it would not be a bad thing to see more open space, but Park and Recreation did work with a developer, and they, to my understanding, are content with the park in the E2 development area, as well as the 35-foot swim buffer along that stream running north-south through the site.
okay, so my other question is, in terms of the schools, I think that you said there was one school over on that side, because there's 275 multifamily dwelling units, or senior multifamily dwellings. So, have they talked to CMS?
CMS is also part of our review process. And I can pull up their memo if you give me just a second.
Yeah, if you could, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
So under the current zoning, which is a single family residential for most of the site, it could produce 311 students. The current or proposed zoning may produce 120 students. So it's significantly less than what might be generated under the current zoning. There are, I mentioned Olympic High School that's just off, kind of underneath where the notes are on the site plan. There's also, I believe, a middle school and elementary school in that area.
Okay, but it is within the parameters, actually less than what they're expected in terms of population of students.
Well, it's less than what, if the owner developed under the current single-family residential zoning, it would generate more than twice as many students as does this proposed zoning.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that it was allowed 300 and something, and then they're going to do 120. Maybe I misunderstood.
Right. They use a calculation based on whether single family or single family attached or apartments, and based on the number of units, they predict a number of students. So under the current zoning, it would be 300 to the note, 311 students, and under the proposed zoning, they're predicting 120 students.
So it will be less students. Maybe I'm sorry, but I just want to make sure that we're not overcrowding the school.
Yeah, that's correct. It's less students.
Okay.
Yes, so Commissioner Chirinos, what Joe is trying to explain is that the current development, as if we didn't have this rezoning, the current zoning allows for or would generate 311 students if this petition wasn't before us. This petition is before us, but it will only generate 120 based on
120.
CMS's
So
comments.
so it will be within the parameters, and it will actually would be less students.
Well, I just want to, yeah, it would be less students for this development, but I just want to clarify that these particular schools are already over capacity. And the numbers that are in your notes for CMS, they're based on the actual building capacity, not with the additional mobile units. So that information will always be included in your petition notes.
Okay, well, I appreciate it.
Of course.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Blumenthal. With the size of this overall development, and I know that there is kind of that multimodal greenway path that's planned, but are there any internal open and or recreational spaces that are planned as a part of this outside of just where it looks like there's a swim buffer and water features on this site plan?
Not as part of this rezoning petition.
Okay.
As I stated earlier, as each parcel comes in for development, they would have some sort of open space requirement, but that's going to be a private open space, not a public space.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, didn't we have, I believe, this is Commissioner Wilson, I believe we had another rezoning where the petitioner had development areas, and someone on staff may be able to clarify this. Inside of each particular development area, there was a requirement for a certain percentage of open space, but it wasn't shown on the site map in regard to open space. And that is different from park space as well. And if somebody on staff can clarify that, then that would be great. If not, I'm sure the petitioner probably has some information about this and would be more than happy to let us know.
What you're saying, it's accurate, Douglas, and I think Joe already mentioned that each area will have its own, each development area will have its own, but I'll let Joe chime in there.
This is Commissioner Blumenthal. Douglas, I think I remember which one you're talking about. I think it was that industrial development.
Yeah.
And what they had done was, instead of allocating a percentage of open space per development site, they aggregated it all into one larger open space that would then have public availability. Now, we may be talking about different petitions, but I do remember that one.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the same petition, and I believe that choice to aggregate was the petitioner believing that, I'm off the cuff here, I'm thinking there are 10, 11 different zones here that could possibly each have their own space. I don't know the process, but it may be down to permitting for them to be able to consolidate those spaces, blah, blah, blah. And again, if I'm incorrect, and staff can correct me on that, or again, there may be some details that are not, again, available to us because the petitioner is still working those details out.
I think that the main thing to remember here, one versus the other, and I think we're all talking about the petition that's behind Concord Mills Mall at the border of Quebec and Mecklenburg County. That particular petition was identified in a Mecklenburg County Park Gap area. So I believe that is what led to Park and Rec's request for more acreage in that particular petition. Outside of open space clarification, are there any other questions, comments, discussion on this petition? And Douglas, did you want a particular note for Joe to address in terms of open?
No, I did not. Again, I believe that the open space will be there. It's just not shown on what we have here because of the stage that we're receiving this information. So I'm okay with that. And if Parks and Rec has signed off on saying they want E2, then they've, I've got to accept that that's what they want, and that I'm perfectly happy with that. That's the way that the game goes. They say what they want, and that's appears to be signed off as well.
Joe, do you happen to know how many acres are in E2?
Not off the top of my head, but I can find that out.
Okay.
They're dedicating 2 acres.
Thank you, Dave. Any other questions, comments? If not, let's have a motion, please.
This is Commissioner Welton. I will make a motion if we're ready for this. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-093 as it appears before us, and the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Blumenthal, second.
Motion by Welton, Blumenthal, second. Commissioner Spencer?
Commissioner Spencer votes aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Ham?
Aye.
Dorinos?
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Aye.
Welton?
Aye.
Votes aye, that passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 8, rezoning petition 2021-111 by Regal Oaks Investments LLC, and we will hear from Dave.
Yep. I just need to clean some water off my glasses there. Sorry about that. Yeah, 2021-111. It's just off Albemarle Road in Regal Oaks. It's a little over 6 acres. Next slide. Currently zoned B1 conditional. Actually B1 and B2 conditional, looks like. And then proposed zoning is R22 MF conditional. Next slide. Area plan from the Eastland area plan recommends single family, multifamily, office, and retail for the site. Next slide. Proposal as presented at the public hearing was for up to 136 residential dwelling units. Principal buildings would be limited to a total of 6. Height would be defined per the ordinance for under R22. Access would be off of Albemarle Road in Regal Oaks. The access, I believe, off Albemarle is, I think, a limited access, maybe right in, right out, if I recall correctly. Buffers proposed along those areas that are abutting single-family residential or non-residential uses. Architectural standards have been included throughout the petition. Surface parking areas would be prohibited between Regal Oaks Drive and the proposed buildings. And also open space and amenity areas would be improved with landscaping, seating areas, hardscape elements, and then it also identifies possible tree save areas on the conditional plan. Next slide. Biggest change is they dropped 1 unit from 136 to 135. That 136 put them just over the 22 DUA, so they had to be underneath that. So we're down to 135 versus 136, and then added a commitment to provide a minimum of 1,000 square feet of improved open space on the site. Staff is recommending approval of the petition. No outstanding issues. They've all been worked out between the hearing and now. It's consistent with the overall recommendation for single family, multifamily, office and retail, but inconsistent for that retail recommendation for the portion that fronts Regal Oaks Drive. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have any?
Commissioner Blumenthal, can you just clarify improved open space? Is that playground, things like that? Is that kind of what that means?
Yeah, it'd be a more amenitized open space than just a grass area. So
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Motion, please.
Commissioner Blumenthal, happy to make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-111 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Commissioner Welton, I'll second.
Motion by Blumenthal, second by Walton. Commissioner Chirinos.
Aye.
Ham,
Aye.
Oh, she's back.
I'm sorry. It sounds like my connection is disruptive.
You just disappeared for a second. It wasn't, I don't think you were muted or anything, because I would have noticed if you were muted.
Okay, I think I heard an aye from Commissioner Ham. Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Spencer,
Spencer votes aye.
Walton,
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 9, petition 2021-141 by Drakeford Company. And we'll hear from Dave again.
Thank you. This petition is just 0.33 acres. It's on East 34th Street, just off the plaza. Next slide. Currently zoned O2. Proposed zoning is NS with 3-year vested rights. Next slide. And the Central District Plan does recommend single family up to 4 DUA for the site. GDP was run, given that's an old district plan, and GDP does support density over 17 dwelling units per acre in this location. Next slide. So that the proposal at the hearing was for up to 9 attached single family dwelling units with individual garages, and the maximum building height was 48 feet. Proposed private 20-foot wide access off of East 34th Street. You can see that just down there, kind of at the bottom of the plan where those arrows are going back and forth. That's the access point. Proposed a variety of principal building materials with a combination of different materials like masonry, brick, concrete, precast, concrete, stone, etc. Does prohibit vinyl as a building material except for things like soffits and windows and other minor components of the project. Also proposes some architectural standards to address blank walls, building facades, and orientation, as well as pedestrian connection, and then the treatments of those corner end units facing that public street on 34th. Next slide. So since the hearing, we have had a change. The number of units actually increased from 9 to 10. That takes the density up to about 30.3 units per acre. It does prohibit accessory drive-through windows, automotive service stations, including repair and lubrication, automotive maintenance services, auto sales and rental, gas stations, and commercial car washes. Those would all be uses found in the NS zoning district. It also notes that the rear unit closest to that parcel to the, I guess it'd be Plan North there, single family residence would be up to 40 feet tall rather than the 48 for the rest of the units. Does propose an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along East 34th. Previously, that was an 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk at hearing, so that's been changed as well. Next slide. So staff does have concerns with the overall form of the building with 10 units in one building. That's not a outcome that we support in other locations. Typically throughout the city, it's not a form that we would support in the proposed UDO with some of the changes to design standards. We're looking at a cap of 6 attached units per building. If we're thinking about how things are set up for, future development or future projects like this. So staff was a little bit less comfortable with the 10 units attached in one building as far as a precedent for that type of development, and what we've kind of been working through over the last several years of trying to limit those to 5 and 6 units per building. So we did have some concerns about the overall form. We did know early on the project could have up to 10 units. It was originally proposed as 2 separate buildings with space in the middle. So staff would continue to request that we revert back to that type of building form. Certainly understand some of the project constraints from the petitioner's side as to that, but I think we just view the form and outcome at this point a little bit differently. And so staff doesn't support the petition current form. Don't really think have an issue with the overall 10 units that were originally proposed. It's just the type of building that we're seeing it proposed in is just not something we felt like we could be supportive of. So overall, like I said, 10 units, really not the issue. It's just the design and layout of the site that we've got our concerns with at this point. So with that, I'll be happy to take questions.
Dave, this is Commissioner Ham. Do we know why the petitioner went from the 2 separate buildings to one building?
I don't have a full understanding of that. I think that'd be a good question if we wanted to get that fleshed out to suspend the rules and ask the petitioner. I'm not sure exactly why it went from 2 separate 5-unit buildings to one initial 9-unit building and now a 10-unit total building. So I think that may be better explained by them.
Yeah, Commissioner Ham, I actually did have a chance to speak with the petitioner and don't necessarily feel comfortable middlemaning that conversation myself. So if everyone else is okay with it, I'd be happy to make a motion to suspend the rules and bring the petitioner in to explain that for themselves.
I would go along with that. This is Commissioner Welton as well. I have one kind of pre-question though I'd like to get from Dave. Staff was okay with 9. Was 9 not breaking the precedent?
Honestly, we were a little hesitant even with 9, but I think we were trying to be a little bit flexible on it. I think once we got up to 10 and seeing kind of a double-digit figure in one building, that's where we get a little bit more concerned with that outcome. I think honestly, we were kind of on the fence either way with the 9 that was proposed at the hearing, but I think we were fairly okay taking that forward. But once we're starting to push into 10 and knew that we had a 2-unit outcome with 10 units overall, or 2-building outcome, I think that's ultimately what we would ask for. I think if you, even on the pre-hearing analysis, we did ask for that 9-unit building to be broken up into 2 buildings as an outstanding issue. So it's always been a bit of an item for us of concern with one building with that many dwelling units in it. But once it went to 10, I think that just put it a little bit further beyond where we were fully comfortable with it.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up, and I realized we diverted. Having 6 in a building is good because?
I think just from the form standpoint of just breaking up massing and making them a little bit more contextually compatible with what's around it on that block and really in that general area is something that's what we kind of look at when we look at townhomes, trying to make them somewhat contextually compatible. A lot of times we see those as infill projects around single family. So, trying to get some general building sense and size that has a little bit more contextual compatibility with what's around it is where that number comes from at least from my understanding when talks with folks in urban design and that are working on the UDO.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And
yep.
Back to.
Again, I'm happy to make a motion to suspend the rules, Chairperson.
I'll second that if when you do it.
Okay, so I think I'll interpret Mr. Blumenthal's comment as a motion and
yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Reno's second. And before we vote to suspend the rules, what question or 2 might we want to have the petitioner clarify?
I believe the primary question is why the jump from 9 to 10 units and putting that all in one contiguous structure as opposed to splitting that.
Well said, Commissioner Blumenthal.
Andrew Blumenthal is a fine young man.
Don't jinx it.
Thank you for the reminder, Commissioner Walton. So we have a motion to suspend by Commissioner Blumenthal and second by Commissioner Chirinos. Commissioner Walton.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Rhodes. Ham.
Aye.
Chirinos.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Might we have petitioner's agent available?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. And please state your name for the record.
Russell Ferguson, petitioner's agent for 2021-141. Thank you for the rare opportunity to speak at this meeting. Don't relish it, but it's the question was, I think the primary question in your motion was why 10 buildings or why 10 units in one building, the change from 9 units in one building to 10 units. And I don't disagree. I disagree with the opinion on it with Dave, but I think he kind of explained it there. This plan initially came in, as you all know, the plans start in a more broad format and details get hammered out. We ended up having setbacks on the side yard of 20 feet and 10 feet on the rear yard. That was inadvertently kind of overlooked during the process. So as we went forward, that constraint of those side yards made it challenge the viability of the project moving forward in 2 buildings, which is how we ended up with 9 units in 1 building. And then we discovered that the setbacks weren't right with code, with the changes in the building right before public hearing. And we had already taken 2 months delay on this. So that discovery of the setbacks changing the side yards to 10 feet allowed for a wider footprint, which allowed for a narrower unit. We still don't have enough room to have 10 units and a gap in the building, because in NS, I think that would be a 15-foot gap, which is different than what you see on some of the other townhome projects where it's almost, I think, 10 foot or 5 foot. And so that gap basically takes it back down to 9 units, at least, maybe 8. So that's our big distinction on the change of the buildings, is it reduces the number of units. And in our kind of discussions, we have added a number of design conditions. We've been working with staff on this project. You know, we think that the perpendicular alignment of this building, I don't know if you could show the site plan on there, but the perpendicular alignment of the length of the building actually takes away, so it makes this policy, which is generally about massing, less applicable. The lot immediately to the north is already zoned R22. It is single story now, but is in similar format, but is not being built at the current cost of construction. And then to the south is the plaza. Across the street is the aging Food Lion. And we kind of anticipate that this building is not likely to be visible in that kind of capacity for the long term. And ultimately, for the viability of the project moving forward, having 10 units, even though they are now narrower units and the building is less long than it was before, was kind of where we are stuck on it. And we appreciate staff's review of this. We really appreciate their support of it coming forward. And we just kind of put before the proposal that the building now is actually 10 feet approximately, and I have to be very approximate with this because internals are still not entirely done, but approximately 10 feet shorter in length with 10 units. So, if the concerns about massing, the mass of the building is actually a little more compact in terms of length, and it's probably going to be about 6 feet wider, which allows for a different townhome footprint that would allow 10 new residences to be built in this vacant land versus 9. We think that's a positive. And we think it meets the general area plans. And I'm happy to answer more questions or clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. We will now continue our normally scheduled session. Thank you. Commissioners Blumenthal, Welton, Ham was, I hope that added some clarity.
Yeah, for the most part, although it did add one other little thing in there that I would ask Dave about. This is an NS. Well, why, I guess. I mean, I don't mean that to be as blunt, but was there, I would normally associate an NS with townhomes, I guess is the way I put that.
Yeah, I think that's another great question for the petitioner. I think a lot of it has to do with tree safe.
Oh, okay.
I would defer that response to the petition.
Okay.
Before you're swirling there. So are there any other questions, comments, discussion while Commissioner Welton continues to flesh out that thought?
Well, this is Commissioner Chirinos. It might be today, or it might be just me. I still could not understand. It wasn't clear on the explanation of the changing of to the 10. And I still don't understand why it went from 2 blocks to 1 single one. So that might be just my personal issue, but I'm going to have a difficult time figuring out how to disagree with staff. See, I still don't understand.
I think primarily what the petitioner's agent attempted to clarify was that the plan has gone through different iterations, and I think at some point the discovery was made that there may have been miscalculation either by petitioner or staff. That part I'm not clear on either, on the required setback and side yard. And that would change the dimensions that they needed for the depth of the units. So the reconfiguration primarily was made for that reason. I don't want to paraphrase.
I mean, but I appreciate you explaining that, but I still, I mean, unless it's of an economic reason why they have one more unit to sell, the explanation still doesn't make sense, and I'll have to agree with staff.
Okay, so I think Commissioner Walton, you had a question about why the petitioner chose to bring this forth as an NS petition as opposed to UR or.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that until the petitioner was speaking, and I knew it was in NS when I read over the things last night, but it was like, well, are there constraints that an NS is putting on this project that if this was a UR1 or something of that nature, would it have been a different, would staff's outcome have been different? And, you know, I just asked the question, that doesn't quite sit right with me, but as Dave said, it's better answered perhaps by the petitioner than us guessing.
Are you then prepared to make a motion to suspend yet again? I have the same inquiry.
Yeah, if there are others that support me in that, if other people want to hear that.
Okay, so before you answer that, if there is a motion and proper second to suspend, I believe that there may be an opportunity for us to also maybe speak directly to the petitioner to get clarity on dimensions, the different iterations of the plan. Why did it go from 2 buildings down to 1? Why was there an increase of units? However you guys want to phrase those questions. And with that, Commissioner Welton, I don't know if you're prepared to make that motion to suspend.
I would make a motion that we suspend the rules for a moment and speak directly to the petitioner, that we ask the petitioner specifically why an NS zoning was chosen as opposed to other zonings, and if there are any, if there were benefits or conditions around that, comma. And the second question would be just to get a clarification on the dimensions of the 9-unit building that had staff support versus the 10-unit building that does not have staff support, and associated setbacks. That's kind of 2 questions, I think, but you know. Was that clear?
Okay, yes. Before I suspend, I want to, or accept a second. Dave, did you actually clarify that it had staff support with 9 units?
We're supportive of the 9-unit outcome. I think our request in the outstanding issues was for it to go back to a 2-unit or a 2-building project with 9 units. You know, that was, but at that point we were recommending it upon resolution of that outstanding issue. But at this point, going up to that 10, I think my understanding of the changes that occurred when it was a 2-unit structure, it's considered planned multifamily rather than, there's a nuance in the zoning ordinance when it's either one long building like it is versus 2 separate buildings. If the buildings were separated back, the setbacks look a little bit different than they do now. And so once that came in with the 9-unit structure, it had the wrong setbacks listed on it because it kicked that into another category of multifamily. versus what it was initially reviewed at as 2 buildings with 5 units each. So once it went down to 1 building all attached, it changes the zoning requirements, and that's where I think some of the transition of setbacks and things got a little bit tripped up.
Thank you for clarifying staff's position. So we have a motion on the floor to suspend the rules to ask possibly a 3-part question, I believe. And do we have a second?
Tarina, second.
I think I heard Commissioner Rhodes.
Oh,
Yes,
Okay.
that was me.
Thank you. And does everybody have a full understanding of what would be required of the petitioner to answer?
yes.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion by Walton, second by Chirinos. Commissioner Blumenthal.
Have it down, Pat.
I'm
Aye.
sorry. Okay, thanks. Ham,
Aye.
Rhodes,
Aye.
Chirinos,
Aye.
Spencer,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
chair votes aye. Is Mr. Drakeford or Ferguson? I'm not sure who's best prepared to answer.
It's Mr. Ferguson here. I am just trying to make sure. I think Bobby Drakeford would like to respond, and just making sure he's.
He is a panelist right now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for your time and all the energy that you've devoted to this, including staff. So let me try to give everyone some context I think will help. But at the core, we appreciate your consideration. If it doesn't work, it's fine. So I own the property next door to here. Those 2 buildings that you see in the outline, I purchased, and they are an existing older multifamily complex. And I filed for the NS zoning category at the core to get enough density on this site so we could create enough revenue to subsidize saving those units. And it has become an ordeal. I won't go as far as to say no good deed goes unpunished, but I will say to you, this is why things are being demolished all the time. And it's no one's fault. It's just the economies of this environment. The cost we've incurred to try to save these has been simply draining. So why have we added 10 units here? It's because we're trying to save the units next door. And that's it. There's nothing else to say. NS is the only category that would allow it. We explain that to staff. We certainly appreciate their consideration. But throughout this process, we learned that there were some miscalculations about what the setbacks are. We made some, staff made some. At the core, we just made errors. So we've been trying to fix it. It's a bit much. And to be frank, I'm fine with you voting it down right now, because this is why this community is being wholesale transitioned. All this stuff is just too hard. I mean, I'm just simply tired of it. So I appreciate it, but feel free to vote it down. No good deed goes unpunished. There's just too many rules. There are too many regulations. That's why we're changing overnight. This was simply an effort to preserve some older units that has just become an absolute ordeal. There's no funding for it, by the way. And I thank staff because they tried, but it's just too much. I'm just tired. Just vote it down and get to the next case.
Thank you, Mr. Drakeford. We will now consider this work session. Rules are no longer suspended.
Chairwoman, unless anybody else has pressing questions, I'd actually like to go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Floor is yours.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by, I guess, let me rephrase. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to deny this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-141 as it appears before us. And do I need to propose an adopted consistency statement with that?
You do.
Okay. And to revise the consistency statement too, and if anyone else wants to add on to this, please feel free. But to revise to the consistency statement as follows, you know, given the petitioner's desire to preserve existing units, as well as the demand for this area, I feel that, because we feel that additional units are actually welcomed and create additional opportunity to live in this area, even though it goes against the consistency statement initially proposed by staff.
Second, this is Commissioner Wilson.
So we have a motion by Blumenthal and a second by Commissioner Walton. Commissioner Chirinos. Before we vote, are there any other points of discussion?
I have to say that I appreciate the petitioner's explanation. It's helping see the actual context, the reality of it. I'm still not clear with, but I understand the issue. I want to make sure that this how can I explain this? This is part of the issues that we're dealing with here is the bureaucracy that is involved in this. And I just think that we need to take a moment to realize that. I mean, we'll move on from this, but I just think that it is important that we take a look at how we're dealing with all of these issues to get the petitioner to this point. So I appreciate, you want me to vote?
Please.
Was it my turn to vote?
Yes.
Okay. I vote aye. Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Ham.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Walton.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 10. Are we? Petition 2021-146 by Kinger Homes LLC. Please mute your audio.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Spencer. I apologize, but I do have to drop off now.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Spencer. Item number 10, rezoning petition 2021-146 by Kinger Homes LLC, and we will hear from Michael. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is approximately 3.70 acres located on the northwest side of Mallard Creek Road, east of Prosperity Church Road. The current zoning is R3 single family residential. The proposed zoning is R12 MF, which is multifamily residential conditional. The plan, the adopted plan is inconsistent with the Prosperity Hucks area plan recommendation of residential uses of no more than 6 DUA. Next slide. So this petition proposes a residential community of up to 34 townhome units with a density of 9.2 dwelling units per acre. Along with that, they do commit to an 8-foot planting strip. They do provide internal sidewalks and pedestrian connections to all public and private streets. It provides a 24-foot Class C buffer to the abutting single-family homes, and it does provide 2,000 square feet of open space with benches and enhanced landscaping. And also provides visitor parking spaces as well. They do have outstanding issues from CDOT to provide a 12-foot multi path along Mallard Creek Road, an additional sidewalk utility easement that needs to be shown on the east side of the property along Mallard Creek Road sidewalk. So staff does recommend approval upon resolution of these outstanding issues related to transportation. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have any on this petition? Any questions?
This is Commissioner Chirinos. Michael, is it, you've talked to CMS? I mean, everything is okay with that, with CMS in terms of, we're given all the issues that we're having right now in schools.
Yeah, so this particular petition is proposed to have a 0 student net increase.
Zero, even though it's a multifamily, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought it was a.
Now, traditionally, townhomes do not have as many students as, say, a traditional single family house, but according to CMS's, memo, the existing zoning, the R3, would generate 11 students, whereas this proposed zoning may produce 5 additional students. So in essence, a net increase of, 0 students from this project.
Thank you.
Michael, really quick, I noticed this is Commissioner Ham that it looks like 22 people attended the community meeting. What was kind of the consensus? I haven't had a chance to read that.
A little bit of everything on that. I think so. I did not attend that community meeting. That may be a question for the petitioner.
Any other comments, questions? And John, to your point, there were that was a good question, and particularly concerns were raised again about the elevation and stormwater runoff and things of that nature during the community meeting. I can't remember if there was 1 or 2. I served on the zoning committee when 2018 147 came before, and I don't remember whatever came out of that or how it was advanced or not. But those questions came up also in this community meeting. And in reading those notes, it sounds like the design team hasn't made much headway in terms of design. I do not want to answer for design team, petitioner, or petitioner's agent. So if that is a pressing question that you have to have answered prior to the vote, we know what to do.
I don't need to suspend the rules.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Motion, please.
Commissioner Welton, I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-146 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Second by Commissioner Ham.
Motion by Welton, second by Ham. And before we vote, I think we're ready to vote. Commissioner Blumenthal.
Aye.
Chirinos.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Rhodes. Rhodes.
Aye.
Welton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. 6-0. Item number 11, please. 2021154 by Matt Gallagher, and we will hear from Joe.
This is approximately 9.3 acres located east of Price Lane, west of Parkway Plaza Boulevard, and south of Yorkmont Road, near the City Park neighborhood. The current zoning is I1 CD. Proposed zoning is UR2 CD. The Southwest District Plan recommends office land use for the site and surrounding area. It's part of the Old Coliseum Mixed Use Activity Center. The general development policies will run for this site. It did not meet, I think that's consideration for up to 12 dwelling units per acre. What they're proposing is 9.68 per acre. That will be 90 single family attached dwelling units at that density of 9.68 DUA, proposing a private street network to provide access to the units. Most of those would be front loaded. They're proposing an 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk along Parkway Plaza Boulevard, while proposing to maintain the existing 6-foot planting strip and 5-foot sidewalk along Price Lane. Be providing about 1.5 acres of open space to be private open space, as shown there on the plan. They're committing to architectural details for preferred building materials, proposing to limit number of units to 6 per building, and also have a additional note stating the petitioner will establish a homeowners association to require rollout container use for trash and recycling. Since the public hearing, they have addressed a transportation note, some site and building design notes. They have 2 outstanding issues, and those are that they had requested 5 years vested rights. And staff does not feel that this is the type of project normally that's reserved for more complex projects built over a number of phases and years. The other outstanding issue is that staff would like to see that note regarding the requirement of rollout containers removed from the plan. They have shown on the plan space for trash and recycling dumpsters. So staff does recommend approval of the petition upon resolution of those items. The petitioner is agreeable to correcting those 2 outstanding issues, and we do recommend approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any for Joe? Joe, I don't remember the notes on this particular site plan. UR2 allows for 100 feet max height. Is that correct?
I don't know that offhand. Dave?
And I think my question more
Max height, but I don't know what the max height is in UR. It does get upwards of, well beyond, I think 65, 75 feet, but they do have a cap on 40 feet for max building height. I think they have a note that talks about, let's see, it says 40 feet with additional height allowance per zoning table, and I think that has to do with transitions away from property lines and setbacks, but we can ask for clarification that just be capped at either 40, or if they need some additional, 45 would be, fairly reasonable for what we would typically support on something like this.
So I think what I just heard is that UR2 allows something in the neighborhood of 65 plus height, and that staff, if we recommend approval, if we agree with staff, you would make that a condition that the petitioner would need to meet in terms of establishing a conditional note that identifies max height of no greater than 48 or
Typically,
45.
yeah, UR projects, we see anywhere from 40 to 48. You know, sometimes we get up to 50, but I would think that a 40 to 48 foot outcome should be reasonable. So, yeah, we can ask that. I didn't notice the note reads as 40 foot with additional height allowance per the zoning table. That really should just be a cap on it with no real caveat to it. So we'll make that one of our items to get addressed for decision.
Okay. See it over there. And B, I'm sorry, UR2, if I'm not mistaken, also allows permitted uses from B1. Many of the permitted uses from B1. Are there any identified restricted uses? No.
No, but just by nature of the site conditions, permitted uses may be developed with up to 90 single family detached. So it really wouldn't allow for anything other than what's proposed on the plan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Question, discussion, comments, motion.
This is Commissioner Blumenthal. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-154 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Commissioner Welton, I'll second.
Motion by Blumenthal, second by Welton. Commissioner Chirinos?
Aye.
Ham?
Aye.
Rhodes?
Aye.
Welton?
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 12. 2021156 by Elite Team Realty and Property Management. And we'll hear from John.
Holly, is John not on?
John's power is still out, so I don't think he'll be able to join.
Okay, then I'll just have to jump in and take on this one. So this petition 2021-156 was, or is, excuse me, 2 acres on Hershey and Wellingford Street, just east of West Sugar Creek Road, north of Tryon Street. Next slide. It's currently zoned R4. The proposed zoning is for UR2 conditional. Next slide. And the Northeast District Plan recommends single family up to 4 DUA. Older district plan, of course, we run the GDP. This met locational criteria for up to 12 dwelling units per acre. So the proposal at hearing was for up to 20 single family attached townhomes. That comes out at about 10 DUA, limits building height to 40 feet. We'll get into some changes to that building height on the next slide. Does have access to the site via private drive or alley off Hershey Street. Maximum of 4 units per building when they front a public street. You do have 8-foot planting strip, 6-foot sidewalk along both frontages. Building design standards have been provided for those structures. Does dedicate and convey or provide a greenway and stormwater easement to the county along the northern property line. You can see that there in that green box. And then also provides an 8-foot wide landscape strip along the eastern property line that would be planted with evergreen trees, 10 foot on center. That's the landscape buffer you can see labeled on the right side of the plan. And also limits height of any detached lighting to 21 feet. Next slide. So this petition was deferred from our last zoning committee, so the petitioner had some time to continue to work with the community. As a result of that, some of the reduction or some of the changes were a reduction in building height from 40 feet to 35 feet. Also provides a 16-foot setback along Wellingford Street and a 28-foot setback along Hershey, and then also provides a minimum of 4 visitor parking spaces. Again, those were all as a result of continued conversations with the community. Next slide. So staff does recommend approval of this petition. We don't have any outstanding issues. It's inconsistent with the adopted district plan from 96, but it is consistent with general development policies that support up to 12 DUA. This one again comes in at 10 units per acre, so it's consistent with those GDP guidelines. So again, staff does recommend approval, and we'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have any on this petition? Any questions, comments, discussion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Ham.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-156 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Chirino seconds.
Motion by Ham, second by Chirinos. Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Blumenthal,
Aye.
Walton,
Aye.
Chirinos,
Aye.
Rhodes. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ham.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 13, 2021-172 by Browder Group Real Estate LLC, and we'll hear from Joe.
Thank you. This is approximately 10.79 acres on either side of Thrift Road. The current zoning is I2. Proposed zoning is mud optional. The Bryant Park Land Use and Streetscape Plan recommends mixed use for this site and the surrounding area. The primary impetus for this rezoning was to address some parking issues related to the adaptive reuse of these buildings. Became pretty challenging, and they were trading parking between different properties, and so this would allow for all uses permitted in the MUD district while limiting building height to 90 feet. It requests the following optional provisions to allow parking and maneuvering between the existing buildings and adjacent streets. It would not allow parking between the buildings and streets with any new building construction. Also, in coordination with CDOT, there will be a tracking chart to calculate cumulative trip generation from the various parcels as they land use changes over time. And at such time that the cumulative trips exceed 2,500, then the petitioner will be required to perform a traffic study and or propose alternative improvements in concert with CDOT. Petitioner requests that renovations to the existing buildings not be subject to MUD standards, but that any new building construction would meet those standards. They are committing to implementing 8-foot planning strip and 6-foot sidewalk along all street frontages where feasible. Where there's a conflict with existing buildings, minimum 6-foot planting strip and a 5-foot sidewalk will be installed. Committing to right-of-way dedication on J Street at 27 feet from center line, as well as to providing median improvements to Thrift Road through the installation of a pedestrian crosswalk with signage. That cost would be reimbursed by the city. Since the public hearing, they have addressed some outstanding notes related to new development as it would pertain to the MUD zoning district. Basically an ordinance requirement that we're trying to keep off of site plans. Also listing the alternative sidewalk dimensions as an optional provision. Staff recommends approval and be happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Blumenthal had one question. You said that the sidewalk dimensions would be factored into this as an optional provision, correct? And that would be then 6-foot sidewalk, 8-foot planting strip. Where there is any sort of constraint, it would be 6 and 5 again. Sorry, that last slide I know said it, but I just can't remember it off the top of my head.
That's correct. So yeah, 8 and 6 where unless they are constrained by an existing building, at which point 6 and 5 would be deemed acceptable.
Got it. I think that's probably the connectivity and then the ability to access these sites, safely, let's say, is in my opinion, the most important component of this. I mean, I don't think anybody in this meeting would deny that this is rapidly becoming a destination, and the interconnectivity is going to be one of the most important parts of that. I guess my only question for you is where feasible, why would we not have kind of a push for the 8-foot sidewalk and an even wider multimodal path? And was there a reason for that?
For that question to see that.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And Kevin Parker with CDOT here, and I can answer that. So a lot of these sites came in as by right beginning around 2018. And ultimately they came in as redevelopment. So our Chapter 19 ordinance was not triggered, where they were not required to construct sidewalks, curb and gutter in accordance with our current day standards. So where these existing conditions currently lie, they were not required to bring those up to our current day standards, which is the 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk.
Understood. Thank you.
Question though, they are adding improvements in the middle of the road there. I don't have the map in front of me, but it appeared as though there were certain road improvements. Can you give me some more detail on those?
Yes, sir. They have been coordinating. Matt Browder has been coordinating with economic development for an overall streetscape improvement along this corridor, which would encompass a median, essentially
yeah.
a three-lane section with a median, and then bike lanes on both sides. And a part of that would also be a pedestrian crosswalk to be determined at a location by CDOT.
Okay, so that, all right, yeah, because I mean, it seems like it's wide enough road. I just didn't quite, I think I can see it on the map now where those improvements are. And I probably want more sidewalks and bike lanes than they have, but that's another story. All right, thank you.
Are those red arrows indicative of just means of ingress and egress, or are those going to correspond with crosswalks?
Those are ingress and egress points, yes, sir.
Okay, and then last question, and I don't mean to harp on this, but with the sidewalk, excuse me, crosswalk improvements, I live in Dilworth, right, and we have the crosswalks on East Boulevard. They are almost 100% of the time ignored by cars. Is there going to be anything, whether it's kind of like a flashing sign or any sort of kind of other method that draws attention to the pedestrians and essentially helps people slow down and give right of way there?
So in the conditional notes here, the petitioner has only committed to a crosswalk that is not signalized, and there will not be rapid rectangular flashing beacon, RRFB. So it will not be signalized, but it will have appropriate signage and crosswalk striping in accordance with our land development standards and the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Okay, thank you. I think, look, I'm willing to vote in favor of this, but I would like to put a note from the zoning committee that we would like consideration of increased signalization of these crosswalks. Because I have spent a lot of time personally in this area, And whatever the posted speed limit is on Thrift Road, the actual speed is typically about 15 miles an hour above that. And I think that as Matt Browder continues to successfully bring in tenants that are a destination and a draw, I would like to see some, and especially as it is at night, I would like to see some attention to potentially, better illuminating these areas and making it safer.
I would just like to piggyback on Commissioner Blumenthal's comments that the speed limit, the average speed that cars go through there appears to be a little bit more than an unsignalized crosswalk would support.
So I might have a question for maybe Kevin or Alfred or Brandon. This note here, this bullet point that says, in coordination with CDOT, uses a tracking chart to calculate trip gen. Who is using a tracking chart?
No, that's a very good question. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these sites in these relative development areas have already come in for permitting within the by right process. So this was, again, our solution that we had coordinated with Mr. Browder and Economic Development to essentially accommodate for what their by right uses are and will be, because there's several that have been already permitted and are currently in permitting. So this was our solution to basically say, and I believe all those are zoned I2 now. And so this was our way to track these development areas and their uses as they redevelop within the MUD-O zoning and the uses that are encompassed within that zoning.
I think I missed the answer to the question. Who is using the tracking chart? Is it the petitioner landowner or is it CDOT?
So when each of these development areas come back in for permitting as they redevelop, they will be required to place this on the cover page of each of their permitting sets. And we will track the existing use compared to the proposed use in each development area and see what the cumulative trips are from the existing to proposed. So ultimately, both the petitioner and CDOT will be utilizing this chart, so we can ensure that they are not surpassing that 2,500 trip threshold from what they're proposing under MUD-O to what was already permitted.
And just thank you for clarifying that. And just for additional clarity, at such time, the note continues, as cumulative trips exceed 2,500. Is that 2,500 for this particular site or this particular petition?
It's relative to the development areas. So for instance, ultimately what we're looking for is that if you can see that number within the development table, the 5510, current daily trips, at some time when what would be 8,010 trips, whenever that triggers, or whenever that is produced, whether that's all in site development area A, B, C, or D, or a combination of each, that's when a traffic study will be triggered.
So I asked that question because as I look at the rezoning history map that tells us that there's 2 more at minimum MUD-O petitions in this 2 to 3 block area. 196 and 198 are 2 that I wrote down that are pretty massive. Just something to watch for, I think, for me. So thank you, Kevin, for that clarity. Any other questions, comments? Don't look at me like that, Douglas.
I don't want to get into this business of crossing over, So I'm not even going to say it out loud,
So you saw I cut it off. Any other questions, comments?
No, Commissioner Blumenthal, though, I'm happy to make a motion.
So where's yours?
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-172 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Ms. Welton, I will second.
Motion by Blumenthal, second by Walton. Commissioner Rhodes. Ham,
Aye.
Chirinos,
Aye.
Walton,
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 14. Rezoning petition 2021-174 by Blue South LLC, and we'll hear from John. Well, unless
Yeah,
John is
again.
okay.
This petition is about 36.7 acres. It's down off Westinghouse Boulevard. Next slide. And it's currently zoned B2 and R12 MF as well as R4. So a couple different zoning districts throughout the project area. And the proposed zoning is for URC conditional as well as UR2 conditional. Next slide. The Sharon and I-45 station area plan does recommend residential up to 17 units per acre. Also, there's a small portion of the top corner there by Blue Central Road that shows that is being recommended for office retail, that northeast corner of the site. So the proposal at hearing was for several different development areas. Primarily areas 1A and 1B are those that are proposed for the URC district. Those would include things like indoor-outdoor recreation, office use for residential sales and leasing, neighborhood food and beverage service, that'd be limited to 1,800 square feet. No on-premise cooking or alcohol sales, no drive-throughs. Could have things like mobile food vending, outdoor fresh produce stands, bicycle sharing station, a total of 24,000 square feet gross floor area in up to 4 buildings. Again, that's in areas 1A and 1B up there on Westinghouse Boulevard. As you get into the site, area 2 is proposed for UR2 conditional. It's up to 133 single family attached townhomes. Area 3 is proposed for up to 80 single family detached dwellings, essentially duplexes, so 2 units per building. Area 4 could be either a religious institution, or if that doesn't develop, that could be proposed then for 20 single family attached duplexes. So again, it'd be essentially, if it doesn't become that religious institution, you'd see the same development pattern that's proposed for area 3. Access is off Westinghouse. There's a network of internal streets, as well as a pedestrian connection to Sterling Lane. 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot multi-use path along Westinghouse Boulevard, and then planting strip and sidewalks along all the internal streets. Maximum building height in all development areas is up to 40 feet, and then there's a 60-foot wide easement dedicated to Mecklenburg County. That'd be dedicated prior to any new units constructed in area 3 or 4. That would accommodate future access to the Kings Branch Greenway and county-owned parcel to the west of the site. You can see that easement there in that green dashed line. Next slide. So changes since hearing. Unfortunately, John's probably more versed in this than I am. I would imagine that most changes were involved to address the outstanding items that were proposed for the site and that we identified during the hearing analysis at our public hearing last month. If we can go to the next slide, Holly says staff does recommend approval of this petition. No outstanding issues from the previous iteration at public hearing. It's consistent with that recommendation for up to 17 DUA for the site. It's inconsistent with that small little portion recommended for office and retail, but overall consistent with the Sharon and I-485 transit station area plan. So with that, we'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Dave, this is Commissioner Chirinos. I cannot find notes on the, and I just wanted to make sure on the CMS, it says what, 210 single family units that are coming there. How are the schools on that? I cannot.
Yeah, so page 6 of the staff analysis has the CMS info. It lists out, could generate 99 students under the current zoning. The development that's being proposed in this rezoning would only generate 78 students. So we have a less student generation as part of the rezoning that could, other than, or aside from what could be built from by right. So if they build it out by right, 99 students, but as it's being proposed in front of us this evening, only 78 students. So a reduction of 21 overall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
Would you mind going back to the site plan briefly, please? This is Commissioner Blumenthal. One more, please, Dave, if you don't mind. As I'm looking at that easement to the greenway, I'm assuming it looks like from the site plan, is all of that going to remain open space, the area through which that easement goes? Essentially, everything.
It's dedicated right now or listed as tree save. You can see kind of the hatched outline around. I know it's a small image on the site on the screen. The area that's kind of fleshed out around it is scheduled out as tree save. The greenway easement is 100 feet. And then it gets down to 40 feet as it kind of curves up towards that curve in the proposed private alley. But that whole back area there is proposed as some tree save as well, along with that bottom kind of corner of the triangle down there at the bottom left of the site plan. That's also tree save area and looks like some additional creek and floodway as well.
Is any of that designated as improved open space?
I don't think it's dedicated as any improved open space because it's part of their tree save requirements. So improved open space, I think, would be primarily found anywhere throughout the site. I know they're doing most of the amenities for the site would be up on Westinghouse, where some of those URC uses would be listed. They do have open space on the site itself. Really, the area in green is built out currently, or it's in permitting, and some is under construction, some have been built. So that area in green is essentially kind of as is, but it looks like they do have some open space before you get to some of that tree save area on the far side of the site plan. But as far as to be programmed and what's in it, we don't have that as part of the site plan, but they will have to meet open space requirements under the zoning ordinance.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Dave, this is Commissioner Welton. Can I get a quick question in? Up on the top right of the screen right now, it says parcel to be rezoned remained undeveloped. That's not in the notes that we have. Is that just a red herring or something?
That's actually been taken out. That's
okay.
Probably changed. Thank you for reminding me of that, because that was a change from public hearing. That area's been taken out of the rezoning.
I didn't know if that was like tree save or something or whatever. And
yeah, I'm not sure how that got captured, but we did get updated maps and everything that we put in the staff analysis that removed that portion of the parcel and dropped the acreage down a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything additional? If not, let's have a motion.
This is Commissioner Walton. I will make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-174 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Motion by Welton. Do we have?
I'm sorry.
Was that your second, Commissioner?
Yes.
Motion by Welton, second by Chirinos, and we will have Mr. Blumenthal's vote.
Yes.
Ham?
Aye.
Rhodes?
Aye.
Welton?
Aye.
Chirinos?
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Again.
Chair votes, I'm sorry, thank you. Chair votes aye, that passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 15. 2021175 by Green Street Land Company LLC, and we will hear from Dave.
All right. Yeah, I'm supposed to usually get this night as a little bit of a night off. Guess not here.
We love you, Dave.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't mind. 2021-175. It's just under 27 acres. It's off Harrisburg and Robinwood, right there at the 485 ramp where Harrisburg meets I-485. Next slide. Current zoning, you can see all R3. Proposed zoning is R12 MF conditional. And the Rocky River Area Plan does recommend residential up to 12 DUA in that dark green portion of the site. You can see there is some light green just south of that. That's recommended for residential up to 4 DUA. Next slide. So the petition that was proposed at the hearing was for up to 295 multifamily units in areas 1 and 2. That comes in at about 11 DUA. Area 3, a portion of that would be dedicated and conveyed to Mecklenburg County for use as a public park. Land and dedicated, that wouldn't include any of their tree save area. Does propose tree save in a minimum of 8,000 square feet of open space, improved with at least 3 of the following elements: walking paths, landscaping, seating areas, any kinds of structures that would be appropriate for the proposed open space. Do have a 50-foot Class C buffer along property boundaries, abutting single-family use or zoning. Access is provided via private road at the existing traffic circle and Robinwood Drive, and also proposes a right turn lane into the site from Harrisburg Road. Also installs a multi-use path and planting strips along Harrisburg frontages and Robinwood Drive on the proposed private road there. And then also provides a number of architectural details, including preferred building materials, blank wall expanse limitations, et cetera. Just to note, Area 2 is more of a townhome type of outcome, while Area 1 is more your traditional multifamily apartment building. So it is, fairly indicative of what's recommended in the plan, where that higher density is concentrated closer up there to I-485, and then go to a little bit of a smaller product in Area 2. And then, of course, like you can see, Area 3 is primarily just going to be that open space and public park for the county. Next slide. So changes made since the hearing. Does add a note. The petitioner will provide a 30-foot access easement for the construction of a trail from Private Street A to the area that's going to be dedicated to the county for a public park. Does commit to 2 PROAG compliant ADA curb ramps at the intersection of Robinwood and the proposed Private Street A. Adds a note stating petitioner will construct a pedestrian crosswalk on Private Street A near the intersection with Harrisburg Road, and does add a note stating petitioner would work to provide that pedestrian crossing on Harrisburg Road. I think there might have been one other, or a couple other items that I wanted to include just in some of these changes that came a little bit late from the petitioner. Does label the required buffer between development area 2 and the abutting single family lot. Also notes that the petitioner will modify note 4F, indicate that the existing shed that's part of 5100 Robinwood Drive, that's one of the existing parcels out there, will either be relocated or may remain in its current location if it does fall outside of any required buffers. I think the conversation was that there's an existing shed on one of those adjacent parcels that we're not quite sure if it's in one of the required buffers. If it's not, no big deal. It'll stay where it is. If it is, then they'll work to try to relocate that. But just wanted to incorporate those into our presentation so we can note those at zoning committee. Nothing substantial as far as changes to the project overall. Staff does recommend approval upon resolution of outstanding issues related to site and building design, which I think relate to those items I just read via that email. So I think most of those would be, those are items 8 and 9. So those would be considered addressed per the petitioner's commitment to those via email. So essentially we can say all outstanding issues have been resolved. So we do recommend approval. It is consistent with that residential portion up to 12 DUA, inconsistent with some of those 4 DUA recommendations. But again, most of that development area is going to be open space. So overall consistent with the vision for the Rocky River Area Plan, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dave. Can you show me where the crosswalk is going again?
Can you go back to the next slide? Brandon, can anybody on your team maybe clarify that a little bit better, where that would be? It might be actually the slide after this, Holly, would probably be the better one. I think the site plan's a little bit bigger on that one. Yeah. So are you asking about the
where it says adds note stating petitioner will construct a pedestrian crosswalk
on Private Street A near intersection with Harrisburg Road? Yeah, Brandon, can you guys have some insight on that?
Yeah, hey, good evening, everyone. This is Alfred with CDOT. So yes, on this site plan you see here, there's going to be a pedestrian crossing at the roundabout for crossing Private Street A. That crossing will be coordinated with CDOT and NCDOT for the connectivity along Harrisburg Road. A recent addition made by the petitioner was another pedestrian crossing to cross Harrisburg Road, just planned north of the roundabout. That's something that's going to require additional conversation with NCDOT and CDOT just to determine if that's something that will be acceptable or if it's better served in a different location. So that's a detail we'll iron out moving forward.
And was that note added at the request of CDOT or just an offering from the petitioner?
Just an offering from the petitioner.
Yeah, that I definitely would think that would need some more fleshing out in partnership with CDOT. Whoever's crossing there would be very, very fast runners.
Brave.
Very brave, yeah. Anyways, okay, thanks for the clarification, Alfred. Any other questions, comments on this petition?
Well, Madam Chair, I'm glad that you brought that up because it says here, I think, that it's gonna produce 80 students as opposed to 14, right? Dave, is that correct? So that's gonna, I mean, we just need to be mindful of the traffic patterns there because it's gonna have more students around, and also the overcrowding of the schools. But I think it's important maybe to have a note to Madam Chair's point that needs to be looked into.
Any other
The
questions?
the safety part of things.
Of course, I would definitely look to trust what CDOT's recommendation would be for the petitioner to properly and safely execute a crossing there. It doesn't look ideal to me based on my site visit, but I don't work for CDOT, so I will leave that to the professionals for sure. Any other questions, comments? Motion, please.
Commissioner Blumenthal, I'll make the motion. Having reviewed the consistency or the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-175 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Commissioner Welton, I'll second.
So we have a motion by Blumenthal, second by Welton. Commissioner Rhodes? Ham?
Aye.
Chirinos?
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Aye.
Welton?
Aye.
Rhodes?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner, nope, that just leaves me. Aye, that vote is unanimous. Thank you. Item number 16, I think, is where we are. We are 2021178 by SDP Acquisitions 1 LLC. And we will hear from Michael.
Unless you'd rather hear from Dave. But I'll start.
I've never seen the two of you in the same place at the same time. That's all.
That's right. So this is approximately 15.97 acres located on the west side of Statesville Avenue, north of Atondo Avenue, and just east of Interstate 77. The current zoning is R22 MFCD and I1 light industrial. The proposed zoning is R22 MF, R22 MFCD site plan amendment. The petition is inconsistent with the Central District Plan's recommendation of parks, open space, greenways, office business park, industrial, multifamily of no more than 22 DUA, and single family land uses of no more than 4 DUA for the site. In this particular petition is proposing a residential community of up to 350 multifamily apartments with a density of 21.9 dwelling units per acre on this vacant land. They are providing an 8-foot planting strip and a 12-foot multi-use path along Statesville Avenue, an 8-foot wide planting strip and a 6-foot wide sidewalk along the site's frontage on Whittington Street, and a 12-foot multi-use path from Whittington Street up to Julia Avenue. They are going to install 2 ADA compliant curb ramps and push buttons for pedestrian signals at the northeast corner of Statesville Avenue and Atondo Avenue intersection. They are committing to a bus shelter pad and ADA compliant waiting pad along Statesville Avenue. They do provide a 50-foot Class C buffer to the abutting single family residents. They do commit to coordinate with Parks and Recreation to dedicate or provide a greenway and stormwater easement for this swim buffer area, as shown on the plan down at the bottom there. And they are providing a 15,000 square foot outdoor amenity area to include a minimum of 2, a pool, clubhouse, community garden, gym, dog park, and it will also have benches. Let's see, they did changes since the hearing. They did limit the maximum building height to 65 feet, and they've addressed and resolved the other outstanding issues. So staff does recommend approval of this petition. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Michael, this is Commissioner Welton. The 12-foot multi-use path on Statesville, is that just within their property, or is it all the way from the northernmost portion of their property all the way down to Atondo, which I think is still LaSalle when it comes in there or whatever? That it would be a shame if they only didn't improve their property and like 50 feet of sidewalk was still craptastic. I'm looking for clarification.
Sure. I'll pass that to CDOT for that clarification if Patrick is on.
Yes, that you are correct that they are providing that MUP along the frontage of their property. There are some existing constraints along the roadway that don't permit them to go further, primarily that bridge that is located right at the edge of their property, essentially where they're stopping the MUP. It's not really feasible for them to widen the bridge to provide that full MUP connection. So that's primarily one of the reasons why they didn't go all the way down to the signal.
Yeah, there's JT Williams Montessori Secondary School is up there, and I know that the folks at JT Williams have a bike ride, and they ride from Center City or thereabouts all the way to school, and they ride up that sidewalk there. And so I've ridden it a couple of times, and craptastic is a lovely description of it. If the petitioner were so inclined and could provide some additional sidewalk down to the traffic light, because they're signalizing that the crosswalk there. I think I heard that. Just some additional bits of sidewalk would be greatly appreciated, because it's overgrown. It's got everything that makes it not a lovely experience for the pedestrian. So, but that won't stop me from supporting this particular piece of development. But I would just make that note. Hopefully the petitioner will hear me.
Any other comments? Questions?
Madam Chair, one thing just to add some clarification on the revised site plan, there was a a parking alternative provided. There's an inset on Plan Sheet 2. The area that's there off Whittington Street, you can see that first arrow when you come in. That's a parking envelope. There is an alternative that's included on the site plan that would expand that parking envelope should it be needed, and that would reduce the buffer, down to, I think, about a 15-foot width there. They don't have any real significant concerns over that. Just wanted to make sure we called that out, that they have a current and then a potential alternative if that should be needed as they explore, some outcomes for the project. So just wanted to make sure we captured that in our presentation this evening.
Thank you, Dave. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Motion.
Commissioner Welton, I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-178 as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Second by Commissioner Ham.
Motion by Walton, second by Ham. Commissioner Torinos.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Aye.
Walton.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Did I get everybody?
Madam Chair, I should have said this before we voted. I applaud this petition because the diversifying housing in that particular area and giving people some additional choices up there is a good thing. And I really like that this particular petition is going where it's going. Enough said.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Dave, I think that was unanimous. Item number 16, rezoning petition 2021-178. Nope. That is the one that we just did. 17, rezoning petition 2021-181 by Evolve Acquisitions LLC and Michael.
Yes, thank you. This is approximately 17.83 acres located on the east side of North Lake Center Parkway, north side of North Lake Mall Drive, and south side of Interstate 485. The current zoning is BP, which is Business Park, and R3, Single Family Residential. The proposed zoning is for UR2CD, Urban Residential Conditional. In this particular petition is consistent with the North Lake Area Plan's recommendation for land uses, including residential, office, and a retail mix, and a park open space with residential densities of up to 22 DUA permitted as a single use. With this proposal, they are proposing up to 336 apartments with a density of 18.8 dwelling units per acre. They do limit the total number of residential buildings to 5. They are committing to providing 8-foot sidewalks and 8-foot planting strips along all public roads. It does provide street network connections to future streets and sort of 4 different areas there. They are providing a 15,000 square foot amenity area with a clubhouse, swimming pool, and a fitness center. And they have addressed all of the outstanding issues from public hearing. And so staff does recommend approval of this petition. I'll be glad to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have any on this petition? Motion, please.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Ham.
Karina, second.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-181 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Motion by Ham, second by Chirinos. Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Thank you. Blumenthal?
Aye.
Walton?
Aye.
Chirinos?
Aye.
Ham?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that passes unanimous. Thank you. Item number 18, 2021-188 by Dominion Realty Partners. And we will hear from Dave.
I can take this one on. I'm back. It's John.
Oh, there you are.
You sure you're not Dave and you just shaved?
John, welcome back.
Thank you. Approximately 15.83 acres on the north side of north and south side of Roundtree Road, east of Interstate 77, north of Tyavola Road. Something happened to the slide. Oh, there he is. Its current zoning is I1. It is vacant. Proposed zoning is MUD CD. The Woodlawn Transit Station Area Plan recommends office and office industrial warehouse distribution uses for the site. Site plan proposes tree save north of the Duke Energy utility corridor, locates all the buildings kind of close to Roundtree frontage, and a clubhouse south of Roundtree with some amenity space, up to 300 multifamily dwelling units in 4 of those buildings, maximum building height of 68 feet. Next slide. Site plan really hasn't changed a whole lot since the public hearing. They addressed the outstanding issues. Staff has recommended approval of the petition. It is inconsistent with the Woodlawn Transit Station Area Plan recommendation for office and office industrial warehouse distribution uses, but it does provide housing opportunities that are within walking distances of places of employment and commercial uses, and it's within walking distance of the Woodlawn Transit Station area or transit station. And then the area around Schultz and Springbrook has seen recent rezonings to allow for transit-oriented development as well. And this petition would support the emerging mix of uses that is occurring in that area. So therefore, staff again recommends approval.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for John?
This is Commissioner Welton. This is probably a question for CDOT. Is Roundtree Road going to get any love? It is it looks like it's been there for quite a while. There are car fix-up places on either side. The road the surface has obviously not been resurfaced in a long time, and I'm just wondering if this is going to be considered one of the primary entrances or exits to this particular project, if that road is going to be brought up to a different level.
Thank you, Commissioner Walton. This is Walter Blackman with CDOT. So the petitioner will be developing a section of Roundtree along their frontage. They're going to be bringing that up to CDOT standards. For a local road, they're going to be putting in curb and gutter with pedestrian facilities on either side.
Yeah.
They're also going to be tying that into 77 Center Drive, allowing that connectivity throughout the side.
Yeah, I mean, when I drove up into 77 Center Drive, and I could see that that would be an easy one to get to. Again, just going down Roundtree, you have to go across the railroad track there, and it's not flat. I mean, I guess that would be the way to put it. And I just was concerned whether or not this was going to be seen as an entrance or an exit, and it obviously is. It is a road. There's a green sign at the end that says Roundtree, but the quality of the road and how that was going, people may choose not to use that road because of, and that's going to divert traffic to a different direction. But I will take it that the petitioner will do the part on their particular property, I guess. We will have to wait. There are other developments, as John said, right there where the nursery is. I assume those folks are going to be doing some updates to that road there as well. I may be wrong, but maybe that gets half of the road done. Okay, all right. Like the project, want the road to be better.
I think Commissioner Walton, I would agree, but also with as rapidly as this area is changing, I can pretty much speak now and say you will be looking at an entirely different street frontage from where it dead ends today all the way out to Old Pineville Road in less than 2 years.
I would agree with you. It is there's good development coming there. I'm pleased. It's very TOD oriented, and I think that it's good to have a population actually in that census block as opposed to zero. So.
Well, and an interesting point came up as I know a few business owners on Roundtree, and the property owners for those businesses are not long holds. And so most of those businesses, or at least the two that I'm familiar with, are all I2. They need I2 space, and a lot of I2 is disappearing. So there's that to contend with. I'm sure we'll have to revisit that as a full commission at some point. But in terms of this petition, do we have any other comments? If not, motion, please.
This is Commissioner Welton. I will make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-188 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Blumenthal second.
Motion by Walton, Blumenthal second. Commissioner Torinos.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Aye.
Walton.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you. Item
18.
That's it. I gotta speed it up.
19.
Thank you. 2021-189 Bentley Femme, and we will hear from Holly, please.
Thank you. This site is just a little over a half acre on the southeast intersection of Tuckasegee Road and Timberbrook Drive. The current zoning is R4 for single-family residential and is proposing to go to R22 MF, multifamily residential. The Northwest District Plan recommends multifamily uses for this site, so it is consistent with that land use proposal. There are a couple of multifamily developments already existing right here to the south of the site and southwest of the site. And being that this is a corner lot, we thought that it would be an appropriate location for an increase in density along the major thoroughfare. It is a conventional petition, so there's no associated site plan. I will take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Holly. Do we have any questions for Holly? Comments? Motion, please.
Commissioner Blumenthal. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-189 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
It's Commissioner Welton. I'll second.
Motion by Blumenthal, second by Walton. Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Torinos.
Aye.
Walton.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Item 22-021-191 by same petitioner. And we'll hear from Holly again.
Thank you. This is 0.35 acres located on the west side of Glenwood Drive, north of Tuckasegee Road and south of the interstate. It is proposing to go to R8MF, airport noise overlay, from the existing zoning R5 with the airport noise overlay as well. The Central District Plan recommends single-family residential uses for up to 4 dwelling units per acre on this site. It is a conventional petition, so there's no associated site plan. The move from R5 to R8 MF would only increase the unit count for this site by 1 to 2 acres total. So it's a pretty modest increase in density, but given that it is the northernmost parcel zoned R5 in that area and what it's next to, we believe it's an appropriate spot for some slight infill. There's no associated site plans. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Do we have any questions for Holly?
Motion to approve, Commissioner Hand. Having
Three.
reviewed-
Sorry.
Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-191 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Second, Welton.
Motion by Ham, second by Walton. One other point of discussion and clarity, Holly, you may or may not know this or may be able to get it fairly quickly. If I'm not mistaken, yes, the lot behind this is empty. Do you happen to know if it's the same property owner?
I do not know if the adjacent lot is the same property owner, but I can look that up for you and get an answer back to you.
And also if they're, well, okay. Thank you. We have a motion by Hand, second by Welton. Commissioner Torinos?
Aye.
Rhodes?
Aye.
Welton?
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Aye.
Ham?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you. 2021193 by Forklift Pro. We'll hear from Joe here.
This is approximately 17 acres located off Grand Park Drive, just north of South Tryon Street. It's currently zoned, split zoned I1 and I1 CD, and the proposed zoning is I2 CD. The Steel Creek Area Plan recommends industrial land use for the majority of the site and institutional for that little area in blue. The site is within the Westinghouse Industrial Activity Area. The plan proposes up to 200,000 square feet of gross floor building area. It would allow for all uses permitted in I2 with the exception of petroleum storage facilities, including automobile service stations, junkyard, medical waste disposal facilities, adult establishments, railroad freight yards, abattoir, construction landfills as a principal use, demolition landfills, foundries, quarries, raceways, and waste incinerators. The site access will be from Grand Park Drive, that's plan side right. At the time that Carowinds Boulevard extension is constructed, they will have the opportunity to coordinate with CDOT and NCDOT on another access that would be on the arrows there on the plan side left. They're proposing a 100-foot buffer adjacent to an institutional use that is a daycare just underneath the development envelope box there on the site plan. They're proposing a 50-foot landscaped area adjoining Carowinds Boulevard right-of-way. Also be limiting freestanding lighting to 30 feet in height and require that it be downwardly directed. So since the public hearing, they have addressed a transportation note that they've corrected, as well as a site and building design note. Also, they've removed requested 5 years vesting rights and added those prohibited uses of automobile-oriented uses, including vehicle sales. Staff recommends approval, and with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have any questions on this, guys? So I have a few notes on this one, very short. Number one, much appreciation to the petitioner and the development team for such an expansive list of restricted uses. Number one. Number two, can I request here a change to the signage on this site? Don't know how much longer it'll be there, but this site is marked 2021 195, not 193. So
That is
just,
the road sign at the site.
yes, it's marked 195.
Holly or Dave, do we have the ability to? We can ask it's CDOT who we coordinate with.
Yes,
But,
I can put in a request for CDOT to change that.
That's it. Motion, if no other discussion notes.
Commissioner Walton, I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I recommend we move approval of petition number 2021-193 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Blumenthal, second.
Motion by Walton, second by Blumenthal. Commissioner Chirinos?
Aye.
Ham?
Aye.
Rhodes?
Aye.
Walton?
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that passes unanimous. 22, item 2021194 by Four Store LLC, and we will hear from Dave, please.
Thank you. Yes, this petition is 1.24 acres on East WT Harris Boulevard. Next slide. Currently zoned O1 and B2, and its proposed zoning is for mud optional. Next slide. The East District Plan recommends both office and retail uses for the site, which this proposal incorporates both. Next slide. The project is for up to 95,000 square feet of indoor self-storage uses and up to 1,500 square feet of commercial uses, including professional business, general office, and retail sales. That would exclude things like convenience stores, check cashing establishments, and EDE uses. Prohibits outdoor storage and truck rental, and limits building height to 55 feet. Does propose optional provisions to allow deviation from the mud parking and loading requirements for warehousing uses. Petitioner will provide a minimum of 24 parking spaces and 1 loading spaces for the site. Access comes off of WT Harris Boulevard. Does propose a 12-foot multi-use path and 8-foot planting strip along Harris, and then 6-foot sidewalks connecting from the building and parking area to that multi-use path. Does identify tree save, replanting areas, and urban open space on the site, as well as architectural standards for the building. Next slide. Changes since the hearing would note that the facade of each floor of the building above the ground floor that fronts a public street but not an alley would have or must have windows or glass that cover at least 25% of the length of such street-facing facade. So just some architectural details to be cleaned up since the hearing. Next slide. So staff does recommend approval. No remaining outstanding issues for the project. It is consistent with the East District Plan recommendation for both office retail uses on both those parcels. We'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions on this? Any comments on this? Not motion.
Commissioner Blumenthal, having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-194 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Walton, I'll second.
Motion by Blumenthal, second by Walton. Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Ham?
Aye.
Chirinos?
Aye.
Walton?
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Michael, can you take us through item number 23, 2021-200 by Trade Street Townhomes LLC?
Yes, certainly. This is approximately 3.21 acres located on the east side of Wildwood Avenue, north of South Hoskins Road and west of Rosel's Ferry Road. The current zoning is R5, single family residential. The proposed zoning is R8 MFCD, multifamily residential conditional. In this, the petition is consistent with the area plan's proposal for residential use. However, it's inconsistent with the Thomas Burr Hoskins small area plan density recommendation of 5 dwelling units per acre. This one comes in just a little over that at 5.6. Next slide. This petition proposes to allow an infill residential development of up to 18 duplexes with a density of 5.6 dwelling units per acre. They do limit the height to 40 feet. They provide an 8-foot planting strip and 6-foot sidewalk along Wildwood Avenue and the internal street. Access is provided to the site from Wildwood Avenue. They do provide walkways to connect all the residential entrances to sidewalks, and they do provide some architectural details. With that said, they have addressed all of their outstanding issues, and staff does recommend approval of this petition. I'll be glad to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Do you have any comments, questions? I have a few. In a residential area that is already bombarded with industrial surroundings, commercial surroundings, particularly those that add to air quality issues. And even with our dire housing situation, especially this type of housing, we just have to be very careful when we are eliminating some of the protection from those pollutants, which is tree canopy. We will be losing just under 3 acres of trees here. The lack of connectivity here, although I don't know how that even would have been possible with this design. I think I would have found this petition maybe a little more palatable if there were more considerations to sustainability or some of the environmental advances that we like to see. I won't be in support. And floor is open for any further discussion. Hearing none, motion please. Anybody, somebody? Okay, am I on mute?
No, you're not. I would have told you. You know, I will just add that we are also yes, trees will be lost, but we're also adding 18 units in that someone this will be affordable for. The missing middle isn't just a form. Sometimes it's a price point. And so that is,
They dropped the missing middle right in the middle.
I understand. Yes, it is. It's kind of funky. It's, you know, it's in everybody's backyard.
I will say we definitely need this type of housing. That is not disputed.
Yeah.
The point that I'm making here is that this is this development. Hold on before I quote. That won't make sense. Is one of the first new pieces of development in this area. It will be benchmark setting. And again, half of that is a good way because we want that missing middle. But again, if it's at the expense of there's no community benefit here other than additional neighbors that have a better level of affordability, perhaps. So additional discussion notes are open. If not, motion. We got 2 more petitions after this, just FYI. Thank you everyone for hanging with us. I promise we're trying to get through these as quickly as feasibly possible. But we need a motion here, team.
Yeah.
This Commissioner Blumenthal, I'll make a motion. I would, just as a chairperson, I do understand what you're saying, but I also understand the need for varied housing types in this area. And I think that if this is precedent setting, that falls on us to an extent, right? Planning staff, but also us to not let it be precedent setting in the negative ways, right? On that note, though, I will make a motion to approve. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-200 as it appears before us and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
This is Commissioner Walton. I will second that.
Motion by Blumenthal, second by Walton. Commissioner Torinos.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Walton.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
And the chair votes nay. Lack of community benefit. The elimination of tree canopy in an area that is already exposed to heavy industrial commercial development, lack of connectivity, points for dissenting opinion. Capture date.
Yes, we've got that. Thank you.
Item 24, rezoning petition 2021-203 by Land Growth LLC. And we will hear from Holly.
Thank you. This site is a little less than 3 acres located on the north and south side of Crown Point Executive Drive, just off of East Independence Boulevard and south of Sardis Road. The current zoning is general business conditional and BD distributed business, and it is proposing to go to B2 general business and I1 light industrial where the BD is. The Independence Boulevard area plan recommends retail uses on the portion of the site being proposed to go to B2 from B2CD. And on the portion of the site that is being proposed to go to I1 from BD, the plan recommends transit-oriented development employment uses. And it should be noted that this recommendation was based off of the previous Silver Line route alignment, which would have put this in closer proximity to the proposed light rail stations. But since that route has been changed and the plan has not been updated to reflect that change, this site would actually now be close to 2 miles from the nearest proposed light rail station of the Silver Line route, just to explain why it is inconsistent with that recommendation for the TOD employment uses for that portion. So given that, staff does think that this is an appropriate petition to move from B2CD to B2 for that area, and I1, given the existing uses and the surrounding land uses in the area. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Holly. Do we have any?
Madam Chair, this just brings up a question which we can't answer here is, this may happen again if a realignment changes, and I'm not sure how we deal with that. Yeah, because I think we've approved some that had a TOD component on a proposed alignment, and if the one I'm thinking of may have changed over on remount or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's just something for us to deal with in the future and not in this meeting.
Duly noted. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, discussion? Motion, please.
This is Commissioner Welton. I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-203 as it appears before us, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Blumenthal, second.
Motion by Welton, second by Blumenthal. Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Chirinos.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Welton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you. And last but not least, Holly, please take us through 205 for City of Charlotte Aviation.
Thank you. This site is just under 6 acres, located on the north side of Denver Avenue, west of Allegheny Street, and south of Scott Futrell Drive. The current zoning is BD, Distributed Business Airport Noise Overlay, and R22 MF, which is Multifamily Residential Airport Noise Overlay, and is proposing to go to I1 Airport Noise Overlay, that is light industrial. The adopted future land use for this plan for a majority of the site is office industrial, light industrial, and there is a small portion here in the green where it is recommending greenway uses for the site. This is part of an ongoing shift in the area to industrial zoning and land uses for the airport. It is located within a mile of the Charlotte Douglas International Airport and well within the airport noise overlay, which is generally compatible with industrial zoning. And the vast majority of the site is already in alignment with the proposed future land use. This is a conventional petition, so there's no associated site plan, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Holly. Any questions, comments? Last motion to round out the night.
Commissioner Welton, I'll make a motion. Having reviewed the petition and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff to approve this petition, I move that we recommend approval of petition number 2021-205 as it appears before us, and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Chirinos, seconds.
Motion by Walton, second by Chirinos. Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Chirinos.
Aye.
Welton. Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you again, everyone, for your patience as we work through this agenda. If there is nothing else for the good of the order, that was our last item of the night, and I bid you all adieu.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank
You have a
you.
good night.
You too.